I try to balance myself between seeing what other Instagram food promoters do and wanting to beat them, and also thinking there's space for even more than there are now.
Sure.
And if they're getting the word out about a local place, then great. I mean, that's the goal.
I just read this article, I think it was in Rochester, or maybe it was in Buffalo, about cereal bar, which I don't even really know what that is.
What a cereal bar is?
Yeah, but...
It's like those Lucky Charms,
No, like the restaurant called a cereal bar.
Okay, gotcha, yeah.
So I guess they're serving cereal and probably coffee.
Yeah.
So one opens up, and then like 6 months later, another one opens up across the street.
Really?
And like it's a big thing about how contentious it's gonna be. And they actually came out and like they're friends and they're supporting each other. And
that's awesome.
It was an interesting little article. I guess it was in Rochester.
Huh.
And so they had that idea where like, we can exist in the same area.
That's cool.
But, still be serving the same market,
Yeah.
I guess.
When I started the Instagram account, there was like 3 people that Instagrammed food in Syracuse. Now there's like 50.
At least, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Is there anything big in Utica where they do just that for the Utica area?
Not yet. Utica is consistently 5 years behind Syracuse and 10 years behind everything else. So no, we've got there's the Made in Utica crew that does some really good things, but they do not focus just on food.
Yeah.
They do have some, kind of focuses on food, but they kind of span all aspects of life in Utica.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, like, Utica's 5 years. I'm sure, I don't think you think it's exactly 5 years behind Syracuse. But I would think that the Tailor and the Cook was ahead of Syracuse in that regard for what you do.
People say that to me. We draw a lot of people from Syracuse.
I'm sure, yeah.
People say that to me all the time, that like they come... I actually have people from Syracuse who say that there's nothing to eat in Syracuse. We love coming here. And I'm thinking to myself, we drive to Syracuse all the time for dinner. Well, we have a toddler at home now, so not as much as we used to. But my wife and I, it'd been nothing for us to hop in the car and come to Syracuse for dinner. So I appreciate it when people come to Utica for that. But I totally disagree that really? I've got a list of restaurants that I need to hit in Syracuse on my phone. And I wouldn't say that there's nothing to eat in Utica either, but Syracuse is a bigger metro market, and there's just more. There's more to it. Utica is a smaller city, 66,000 people, and if you include New Hartford, that gets a lot bigger. But New Hartford, we just have a lot of chains and big box restaurants that. So there are a ton of really great locally owned restaurants, and more popping up. But I feel like that we do not have anywhere near the breadth that Syracuse has. Yeah,
I guess if I think about like some of the old school places like Elderberry Pond and things like that, then for sure, like they've been around for a while.
Sure.
I think of like the popular spots that are doing great stuff. And I mean, Deefy, is I don't know. Maybe I just don't know enough about the history of it. But Deefy, I feel like, is one of the first restaurants in Syracuse that was really doing something truly unique. And then you had Amano that popped up, just shortly after that. And now you have St. Urban, you have Eden that just popped up, which is out of this world, amazing. But you started in 2015.
2012.
2012.
Yeah, we're coming up on our 8th anniversary.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And I guess it was a little. I guess we were a little bit forward thinking, but it didn't seem like a really outlandish idea.
Yeah.
The one thing that I saw was that farmers markets, and also at that time there was a buying cooperative in Utica.
Yeah.
Called the Food Shed. And those two, our local farmers markets, like Syracuse, like the regional market, are just booming, and I thought, why isn't anybody serving this food? Why isn't there any form of a restaurant, doing farm to table? So certainly everybody knows, even 8 years ago, the idea of farm to table was not a foreign concept.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like a logical thing for us to do. We did not know how much we could do in the way of farm to table. So when we opened, it was far different than it is today.
Yeah.
I think I had 2 or 3 local proteins and, quite a bit of local produce, although we opened in February. So, I was buying what you'll hear me use the word commodity a lot. It's a dirty word, but it's how I differentiate the difference between if I have to buy something locally, if I'm fortunate enough to buy something locally, or if I have to buy something like lemons and limes.
Yeah.
And don't get local lemons and limes. So I consider that a commodity purchase.
Yeah.
I don't like things that are commodities. I don't think that food should be considered a commodity.
Right.
But I do need lemons and limes. I am not 100% local. But when we opened, I don't know. I never had a time to really weigh things out. But today I'm about 85% locally sourced.
Yeah.
In my perishable inventory.
Yeah.
100% of my proteins are local, which
awesome.
that was the biggest hurdle that I wanted to get over. It took me 7 years to do. It was only just this past year that I got all my proteins locally. And
what was some of the biggest challenges with that?
So when we opened, we wanted to be fine dining. I wanted to be the highest end experience in the city. I wanted to serve that market. There was a bunch of great restaurants, but they were all fairly casual. But I wanted to be high end without being stuffy.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we put on the menu when we opened was filet mignon. A lot of people had told me you got to have that. That equates with a good fine dining experience. I couldn't disagree anymore.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure that I had offerings for Utica, and I wasn't sure if they were going to go for the local thing. So we put things on there that I knew were good bets.
Yeah.
And one of them was a filet mignon, tenderloin of beef. And it has been consistently every week our best-selling entree for a long time, for the whole time.
That blows me away.
It's disappointing.
Yeah.
But we do, I do the best I can with it.
Yeah.
It certainly tastes good. That would be the last cut of beef I would personally choose.
Yeah, same here.
No flavor.
No, we went to dinner. Rebecca is from Boonville.
Oh, really? No kidding.
Her dad is a big animal vet up there, and that's where they grew up. And her parents and her sister still lives up there.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
And Rebecca is a dietitian. So she works for the state, and she's one of the teams that does the surprise inspections at nursing homes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so
interesting.
She's in the Utica area quite a bit.
Okay.
I think just because there's so many, out there, that's where she spends most of her time.
No kidding.
So she was out there this past week. It was her mother's birthday, and so I drove out there and met them for dinner. And I, texted her mom and said, where do you want to go? And she said, I had just had friends that went to Ocean Blue, and they said they loved it, so let's go there. It's like, okay. I've been there before, and went there, and the only thing on the menu that really, there's different appealing things, but the only thing that really seemed the most appealing, even though I knew it was a bad choice, was the filet mignon. And it was not a good choice. But just, there's a number of reasons why.
Sure.
One of them is because it's a filet mignon.
Yeah, right.
Can't stand
Not
it.
their fault. It's just it's the cut of beef, right?
I can't stand it. And I wish I didn't order it, but I did. Yeah.
So many people love it, though. It's just equated with being the best. It's to me, it's like a lobster tail too.
Yeah.
I don't give a hoot about a lobster tail. I really don't. It just doesn't. I like lobster. I like the knuckles and the claws and the legs. I like to suck on the legs.
Right.
A lobster tail to me, it's somebody along the line said this is haute cuisine, or this is the best, and a filet mignon and a lobster tail. But anyways, going back to that filet, I sold so many of them. There was no beef farmer that I could find that could keep up with me. Think about this. If I'm selling 60 filet mignons a week, it equates to about 8 tenderloins, or maybe 10, depending on the size.
Yeah.
So let's say it's 10 tenderloins. That's 5 cows slaughtered on the week to keep up with my tenderloins.
That's crazy.
I don't serve burgers. I'm not buying the whole animal.
Right.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I don't serve the burgers. And nobody could keep up. So that means I'm buying commodity beef.
Yeah.
And for about 4 years, the only protein that wasn't locally sourced was that tenderloin, and it really burned my rear end. And I thought about taking it off the menu, and the front of the house was like, you can't do that. You can't take it off. And finally, the market is the supply and demand is always at work. And I've been doing business now for about 3 years with a company called Kilcoyne Farms. They're out of Hudson Falls, so over towards Albany, north of Albany, and they are a big producer. They're what is referred to as a finisher.
Okay. Yeah.
So he doesn't grow the cattle from beginning to end.
Yeah.
He purchases, let's say teenage cattle, and then finishes them.
Yeah.
In a way that I really like what he does. It's not grass fed.
Yeah.
And grass fed is difficult. Some people don't like the flavor of grass fed meat. It can be, pretty intense. So he's a finisher. He finishes them on a really nice mix of grains and alfalfa and peas and corn, of course. And he fattens them up.
Yeah.
And then he brings them to market, and he can keep up.
That's good.
And so I'm going through, I buy 8 to 10 tenderloins a week from him. And it's the most rewarding thing that I've ever pulled off, is to now, because it was really counterproductive to what I was doing, to be buying all that regular old beef. I didn't want to do that anymore.
Right.
I wanted to take it off the menu. It was, because I do what I do for a bunch of different reasons, but one of them is an ethical decision to know my farmer.
Yeah.
And to have a relationship with my farmer.
Yeah.
And so buying that beef was just a real kick in the balls all the time, but it was the best seller.
Yeah.
So I finally figured that out.
Yeah.
So this year I became 100% locally sourced proteins.
That's wild.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
Because it took me that long to figure out the equation. It took that long for the market to, I'm not a big restaurant.
Right.
400 people a week.
Yeah.
That's how many people I serve, which is not small, but it's certainly not large.
For sure.
And there's restaurants that serve that in the night.
Yeah.
Those restaurants serve that by 7:00.
Right.
So to say that the market is now at a place where it can keep up keep up with my needs, and then the other ones too.
Yeah. I feel like Utica to me also kind of has its connections to that like Albany, Hudson Valley sort of roots or whatever.
Yeah.
Where Syracuse, I don't feel like if
just far enough away,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
And so there you can get some great local stuff down towards Albany and Poughkeepsie and Hudson, all those areas that to me still seems local for Utica, and here in Syracuse wouldn't feel local whatsoever.
Right.
But amazing stuff.
Sure.
Well,
and I draw my definition of local is New York.
Yeah. Right.
I cannot.
Yeah.
I can't make it too small, because I need to get what I need to get to please my customers and to make it a really awesome experience. My duck comes from Long Island.
Yeah.
Because that's the only place I can source the duck that I need.
Everybody's, I think, if they're doing anything good, it comes from.
Yeah. And but I've got my beef is Hudson Falls. Steve Winkler is my pork farmer. He's up Rodman, just outside of Watertown. I need what is, especially when it comes to protein, I need something that would be referred to, this is I think a phrase I made up, big small farm. So I need a pork farmer that can keep up with me, but I want to be able to talk to him.
Yeah.
So I need to know the owner. I need to be able to visit the farm. I need to be able to ask questions. And even Crescent Farm, my duck farmer down on Long Island, he's a very large farm. But I can still call Doug Corwin on his cell and, hey, what are they eating?
Yeah.
Ask any questions I need to ask.
That's wild.
So I look for a big, small farm.
Yeah.
When it comes to produce, I don't have to go very far. I've got great produce within 15, 20 minutes of Utica. And so, everybody should have produce that close.
Yeah. Especially when you mention like the, lemons and limes, it's something you can't get. But I think of the work, not just the like faint things I've heard coming out of Cornell, but especially people that are now building pretty substantial hoop houses.
Yeah.
To be able to grow just about anything that you could want to,
Right.
depending on how well you control it and what environment you make
Sure.
them there.
And extend the season.
Yeah. It'll be pretty interesting, I think, in 10, 20 years to see what actually can be grown locally. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it'll be interesting to see what
Well,
they can do.
I don't think that it's certainly not wrong. You know, I mean, to see there's a really cool farmer in Utica named Joe Pizzo that he's producing, you know, a lot of experimental stuff. He's growing pawpaw and things that are indigenous to the United States, but not this far north. Sea buckthorn berries, and this is really interesting. He's got this really experimental plot. I'm actually going to go check it out next week. I haven't been over to see him, but he could be a good conversation for you someday.
Yeah.
But you know, yeah, well, to be a farmer in this area, especially produce, you really have to kind of think outside the box, you know. And you've got to have a hoop house. You've got to have a high tunnel.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to, because, man, especially with the way the climate is changing, believe it or not, like it or not, things are changing with the climate, and to be a farmer, you really have to be adaptable. You know? The springs have been strange, you know, they're awful wet. You know, this year was a real tough year, and it turned out to be a great summer from a growing perspective, but the spring was tough, and a lot of farmers couldn't keep the seeds in the ground. You know, they're rotting, they're flooding, they're whatever. And so now you got to be able to extend the season. Thank God for the September we've had, but you got to have the high tunnels and you got to have the hoop houses.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Otherwise, you're not making money.
It's amazing I don't know of another profession that is as difficult as a farmer.
I can't think of one.
Not just,
Restaurateur is close. Really close.
Right. I've loved the fact there's been 3 things that I've gotten into in the past, 2 years that have really 4 things that have really started to change my perspective on what I eat. And the first is Dan Barber's The Third Plate just blows me away. I mean, it started with his episode of The Chef's Table on Netflix that led me into the book. But, I mean, that's just absolutely wild. The second thing was I did a 7-day vegan challenge a few months ago. And it's not that big of a deal. It's 7 days. But to think, just putting myself in that mindset of being very cautious of what you're consuming.
Yeah.
And I got to talk with Joel from Strong Hearts and sit down with him for a few minutes and talk to some other people that I know that have been vegans for a while. That started to kind of shift my thinking of, all right, the whole animal industry.
Yeah.
But then these 2 documentaries recently, one of them I think is like The Biggest Little Farm or something like that.
I haven't watched that yet.
Yeah.
But I've heard a lot about it.
Yeah, it's great. It really is great. And the fourth thing, I just watched it, and it's what the hell is the name of it? The guy that did the McDonald's documentary like a decade ago.
Oh yeah.
I forget the name of that thing.
Super Size Me, that guy.
Yeah, I just watched it yesterday.
But he did something recently?
He just did part 2 yesterday.
Oh, really?
And in it, he sets out to create his own fast food restaurant in Columbus, Ohio. That's just chicken based, so it's like a Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
And he goes through the whole documentary, goes through everything from his meetings with these high level brand companies and marketing companies to his wording and colors and don't use the F word fried, only use crispy. And they developed this crispy grilled chicken sandwich that is a deep fried chicken sandwich, but then they paint grill marks on it with charcoal right before, like on the line, right before it gets put on a bun and gets sent out. And
wait, is it breaded?
It's breaded, deep fried, and then they have the spatula that they made that they put on top of the chicken breast. Get a paintbrush that's in charcoal and paint like the stripes on it real quick.
That's
flip
so
it,
bizarre.
paint more stripes, and then put it on the bun. But it's all the psychology that he learned of if somebody sees the grill marks, then
they feel like
healthier.
it's healthy, right?
And
so he didn't set out to open a healthy restaurant.
He set out to kind of expose the things that the fast food, and probably just not just fast food, but the commercial restaurant industry does. and exposes their things. Like everything has a golden halo around the word on the menu to make it seem like it's healthy, and everything's green, and and like the Chipotle, all the cups, the font is handwritten.
Yeah.
But it's funny, all of the messaging that he has, all the branding inside the restaurant, you'll see like the halo, and you'll see the green, and like fresh is like blown up, and sustainable is blown up, and cage free, all that kind of stuff.
So many taglines.
Right. But then on the cup and on these different signs on the tables, it says like the real message, like, hey, actually that halo that you saw makes you, we did that on purpose to make you feel like it's healthy, but guess what? This is a deep fried chicken sandwich you're eating. And then it even says the grill marks we just painted on 2 minutes ago with charcoal. They wasn't actually grilled. So these people are kind of reading it and like as they're sitting there eating,
and they're filming this whole thing, watching the revelation, right? Wow, I gotta check that out. Is it on Netflix?
It's on Netflix.
Might watch tonight's movie night for us.
Yeah,
so might watch that tonight.
I rented it for $6.
Oh, it's not a freebie yet.
No, it's not a freebie. I'm sorry, it's not on Netflix. It's on iTunes.
Okay,
it's on iTunes.
Gotcha.
So you can rent it for $6. You can buy it for $20. But it's the biggest thing that blew me away from it. And it is a documentary, and so I do have to understand they are steering that in the way they want it to.
Of course, yeah.
But one of the things, and I forget which state he was in, he ultimately decided that he had to buy his own chicks and raise his own chickens, and that's what he did. He went and rented a whole space from another chicken farmer, and they helped him do it, but he went and went to a specific, breeding place and bought like thousands of chickens, and they were hatched, and then they transported them to this farm.
Really?
And he
did he actually serve though?
Yeah. So those were
wasn't just a marketing stunt.
They film from him purchasing, like seeing the eggs hatch, to then purchasing them, to bringing them to the farm, to then this process of them growing.
Wow.
To then the processing plant come in at night to pick the chickens up to take them to the processing plant. So they show everything but them being processed. And he's going through the regulations in it of how he wanted to be cage free, like free roaming chicken, like
free range.
Thank you. And according to the USDA laws, regulations, the only thing, so you've seen the chicken houses before, right? Long windowless door, right? The only regulation to call your chickens free range is to open the door up a certain amount and to make an outdoor space that's, let's say, 5 feet wide by 3 feet deep. That's caged
maddening.
In. And you could have 20,000 chickens in there, but they just need that little space where they could walk outside.
If they got out of their cages.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is what they consider. That's all you have to do to be considered
That's
free
a damn
range.
shame.
And no one comes out to like inspect it.
Yeah, of course not.
It's absolutely insane.
And there's similar things when you look at the big boxes of organics, the regulations on organic eggs or organic chickens, just find a farmer and get it locally because you're being hoodwinked in a lot of ways. You know? A lot's changed in the last decade, and don't get me wrong, certified organic farms and things like that, there's a place for that, and we need that. We need to make sure that we're providing opportunities for people to source food that they feel good about. But if you're going to Price Chopper and you're looking strictly for organic, then you should look beyond that to see what it is that goes into that organic granola.
Right.
Or, and one thing that really blows my mind is organic bananas. Show me that tree.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think banana trees have to be fairly like mature to produce fruit.
Right.
I don't know. I've never, but really? Organic bananas? Like what's different? Because when was that tree planted? and how is it producing? And, My wife has this list of things that like you really want to pay attention to with organics, when feeding children.
Yeah.
And then things that's like, don't get so worked up. And one of the things is bananas. They said, don't get too worked up about a non-organic banana. It has a thick skin.
Yeah.
It's not being sprayed with a pesticide, really.
Yeah.
So, and we eat, I have kids. We eat a lot of bananas in our house, and I just will not pay for the organic bananas.
Oh, yeah.
It's so far away. Like they came from a place, certainly there aren't local bananas.
No, not at all.
They came from a place a long ways away. How can I know?
Yeah.
How can I know about an organic banana? And why would I pay twice the price?
And who is looking at that?
Tell me who's looking at that.
Yeah.
Because it's still, you got the dole and you got the dole.
Right.
They're both,
Yeah.
The only thing that's different is there's a bunch of plastic wrapped around the organic ones, right?
Yeah.
And so that whole concept of, and I said taglines earlier.
Yeah.
It's just like those eggs that you talked about, or the chickens.
Yeah.
The regulations are to
crazy.
call them gray would be a major understatement.
Yeah.
And I don't want to educate myself that much on it. I just want to find another local farmer and shake his hand and talk to him and come to the farm. And if they have a certified or organic stamp, great. But I don't need that.
Yeah.
I just need to shake a hand and walk through the fields and talk about how you handle the weeds or how you handle the pests or how you handle the feeding or the slaughter or whatever they're producing. I want to understand the situation, what you struggle with,
I'm really happy there's this farm, a guy up just on Onondaga Hill, which is 15 minutes from here. His name's Charlie. He has a farm called CBG Farms. And he processes, I forget how often, but he just does cattle and he processes one every so often and then gets it packaged up and took one of his little tiny shacks and can put a freezer in there it's pretty funny because you walk up and it's like a dingy, beat up farm. And you're like, am I going to get murdered here? And then you walk into his little shack and it's like a hipster's paradise in this little, it's like the size of this table, it's just tiny. And there's a counter and a freezer and, he has his pricing out there.
Serve yourself sort of a thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I think you ring a bell and somebody will come running. But Charlie had been tweeting at me for, it's funny, like this farmer's on Twitter, but he'd been tweeting at me and he was like, you need to do more for farms. And so I went up there and met him and I bought a box and he wound up actually joining the card. So, people can use it up there.
Cool.
But you go up there and he gave me a tour of the whole facility and he was like, here's what we do and here's what we feed them and here's my family that takes care of them. And, it's just...
That's what matters.
Yeah. And 15 minutes away from downtown Syracuse. It's not, hours away or anything like that. And, it's funny because he'll kind of say things on his Instagram account. He'll post. He's like, I just saw a local cattle farmer posting that they don't give their animals anything. They don't give them any, medicine or hormones or anything like that. And he was like, you must really not care about your animals if you're not even giving them medicine.
Right.
So he it's funny because from time to time he'll just make these posts of like, this is really how you take care of an animal. And, no, we're not organic, but we're still treating them well and taking care of them.
Sure.
But you can just go up there and buy steak from him.
Right.
See how he does it.
Sure.
It's great.
That's what's important. It's, what I do a lot of talking about the mission and the concept of my business.
Hey, sorry, give me just 1 second.
Sure.
I got carried away and realized I got to restart the camera every 30 minutes. All right. Sorry about that.
No worries. So I talk a lot about the mission of it, and people, one question is, well, what's farm to table?
Yeah.
And I guess I don't think it's that far-fetched of an idea, but some people still do want to define it. And so the way I've decided to break it down, at least for Central New York, is it's how our grandparents did it. We are only, at the most, 2 generations divorced from farm to table. My grandparents did not grow up with a Hannaford or a Walmart.
Right.
And neither did yours.
Yeah.
Now, my son's grandparents will have grown up with a supermarket.
Yeah.
Well, even my dad, it's a lot's changed in his lifetime, but that's what farm to table is to me, is the opposite of getting everything in one place. Mm-hmm. And when you bring that to a restaurant, it's the opposite of Cisco pulling up and unloading everything once a week. And that's how a lot of restaurants do it. And that doesn't make those bad restaurants.
No.
But 40 vendors a week pull up to the Tailor and the Cook at all hours of the day and night.
Yeah.
And unload their wares. And we know them.
Yeah.
That's what farm to table is. Just the way that you and I are talking today is the way that I can talk to any one of my farmers. Mm-hmm. We probably don't have as defined of a space and time for it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's either email, text, or phone calls, but I do visit the farms when I can. And that's what farm to table is. It's knowing somebody.
Yeah.
And getting answers to questions that you might have. Mm-hmm. That's all.
Yeah.
And beyond that, it's a very elementary concept of know the person who produces the food that you put in your mouth to nourish your mind and your body and your soul, and that's it.
Yeah.
And we just do it on a little bit bigger of a scale so that we can, feed 400 people a week. And that's all I ever really wanted to do, was just provide and so the motto or the slogan for the restaurant is to provide a path to the farmers who we do business with.
I loved one of the, when I have a guest on, I just Google the heck out of them.
Sure.
And try and go 10 pages deep if I can. And I love that for the Tailor and the Cook because it kept going. And the results, there's some people, it's like I find the same information on every page. But there's a video, I know, it was on your YouTube channel for Utica Bread.
Okay.
And it was one of them where it was like interviewing some of the customers. There was one guy that said they live, 30 minutes, 20 minutes away, whatever it is, and how he'll stop in there 1-2 times a week to get bread because it's not going to sit there and be shelf stable for 2 or 3 weeks like it will be in the supermarket.
Right.
It's good for 2 or 3 days and great. But he said, this is where we come to get our pastries and our bread, and then we go here to get this and there to get that. And yeah, that's, that my grandparents, my dad growing up, that's what they did.
And it's a much different time.
Yeah.
You can't expect everybody to do that.
Right.
I don't do that. I went to Hannaford this morning to get some groceries that we needed. I have to, we don't live in a world that is it's not a storybook, but there's enough options these days with farmers markets and local producers, especially here in Syracuse. I mean, if you want good bread, you can get it.
Yeah.
You want good meats, you might have to travel a little. You might have to go out to Side Hill Farmers, but you can find a good local butcher, and food has to be a priority.
Yeah.
To some people it is, and to some people it isn't.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make, like I said about the restaurants, I got friends that don't give a hoot about their, where they source their food, and I love them just the same.
Yeah.
And they'll come to my restaurant too. Not everybody that comes to my restaurant comes because it's local.
Yeah.
They come because it's good.
Yeah.
They come because it's a good experience. It's where they can celebrate their anniversary and they know they're going to be well taken care of.
Yeah.
They come because the service, that's one of the things that really sets us apart, is the service that we provide is head and shoulders above what anybody else does.
It's funny. I was going through even like reviews last night, and there was like 700 4- or 5-star reviews. There was this 1 2-star review.
Got to read the 1s and the 2s, man. You got to read them. And did you see any of my responses?
Oh, yeah, I read your response.
I am the best passive-aggressive responder to that stuff. You got to respond to that stuff.
Yeah, you do.
Give me something constructive.
Right. Yeah.
That I can do better.
Yeah.
And give me a 2-star review.
Yeah.
Give me a 1-star. Mm-hmm. Tell me what I did. But if you're going to go on there and you're going to say something and you're going to take my business's name in your hands, then give me something I can do better.
Yeah.
Don't just bullshit me. Mm-hmm. Don't just blast me.
Yeah.
This is my life's work.
Right.
This is my family.
Yeah.
We are obviously trying hard. Mm-hmm. Like even if you didn't like what you experienced at the Tailor and the Cook, you would have to really have your eyes closed to not see how hard we're trying.
Yeah.
So give me a 2-star. Give it to me.
Yeah.
I can handle it, but give me something to grow from.
Right.
And if you don't, I will respond. I will respond in the same manner that you responded to my business.
Yeah. There was a TripAdvisor where you can separate things, and they had given like 1 or 2 on everything except for the service. They had best service we've ever had, and then they did their thing.
And that's good. Maybe it just the food isn't for everybody. My portions aren't huge, so that's one thing that gets me. My portion, if you're eating protein at the Tailor and the Cook, whether it be fish or meat, you're going to get about 6 ounces.
Right.
More protein than that is
not good.
It's not good for the body.
Yeah.
And it's not how I want to present the food that I serve. This is not Delmonico's.
Right.
This is not Longhorn Steakhouse.
Yeah.
We are a vegetable-focused restaurant that serves protein.
Yeah.
That's the way I like to look at it.
Yeah.
And I want it to be that way. So that's one of the things. Small. Well, I left hungry. Well, no. Maybe you should have had dessert. Because you wouldn't leave hungry.
Yeah, we asked.
Right.
We said no.
If you just had an entree and a glass of water, then maybe you left hungry.
Yeah.
That's not my fault.
Yeah.
Maybe it was out of your budget. That's not my fault either.
Fault. Yeah.
You get what you pay for with us. Value is a word that I preach to my staff a lot about. Somewhere along the line, value became like equated with cheap.
Yes. And it still is. I mean,
but look it up. If we looked up the definition of value, that's not what it means.
Right.
Value does not mean cheap.
Yeah.
Value means, did you receive goods and or services in line with what you paid for them? That's what a value is.
Yeah.
If you paid $100 for a pair of shoes and they lasted you for 5 years, that's a good value.
Yeah.
If you paid $1,000 for a TV that you've had for 10 years and still looks good, that's a good value. If you bought a house for $100,000 in a neighborhood where things are appreciating, that's a good value. Somewhere along the way, that word became like, you see it even in like the grocery stores, like name brand is like great value.
Right.
That means dirt cheap.
Yeah.
Right. And so one of the things that I think we provide at the Tailor and the Cook is value.
Well, listen, your entrees are between 30 and
Between 30 and 40 for the most part.
So for, let's say, $55, if I have a drink and the tip and all that, for $55, I can pay you to go to 40 different local, providers, farmers, growers, all that stuff, source all of that, and then prepare my food, and then have you also hire someone to serve me that food. I think that's a pretty good value.
And have music playing,
right?
A comfortable seat, an interesting atmosphere. Like I just feel like sometimes, and I'm kind of hovering around the whole the review thing. Like these people, the day and age that we live in has changed things, and people are very quick-tongued.
Yeah,
and I just wish, like, I write some reviews every now and again. I generally only ever write a positive review. If I have a negative review, I'll sometimes send an email, directly to them and just be like, this was what the deal was. But I look at it differently because that's my life.
Yeah.
That's how I feed my children.
Yeah.
So handle it with care, I'm trying really hard. I don't hit the nail on the head 100 times out of 100, but if you can't see how hard I'm trying, then please just look a little closer. You know what I mean? It's not your average restaurant.
Two of my favorite stories of restaurant owners handling reviews is Cody over at Deefy had a 1-star review on Google, and he saw it. I think the story goes he saw it like at night. It just really affected him, and so he decided to go and not only just kind of look and see who that customer was, but to see what other things they had also reviewed.
Generally, they're all poor reviews.
Right. And they were at any restaurant Cody said he would have found himself going to, but at the Taco Bell and McDonald's, they were 5-star excellent reviews. And then Kyle at Kasai Ramen, and the same night, 2 different guests, one, I don't know if you've ever seen Kyle or met him before, but
No, I haven't.
Kyle's a white guy from Philly, and he's doing ramen over here in Syracuse, and pretty good ramen as well.
I've heard a lot of good things. I haven't been there yet.
Yeah, it's pretty legit. Or I need to stop saying that about ramen because we're not in Japan, so
So it's not legit,
right.
but
White people love to put like legit, authentic on so many ethnic things.
they really do. They really do.
We've never been,
Right.
and yet I say it all the time.
I know. I do too.
Yeah, I just actually got into it on Facebook because there's this Where Syracuse Eats Facebook page. There's so many people that go on there and just bash these local spots. And this one guy went on there and bashed Kasai. He was like, it's the most unauthentic ramen I've ever had. And he's a white guy. And I'm like, well, how long did you live in Tokyo? Like where did you live? Did you live in Beijing for a time and, had some...
Right.
And then I just called it legit ramen, and I've never been to Tokyo before. The most legit I get is New York City. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
But Kyle has one night this guest student from SU who's from China asked to see the owner, and the waitress goes back and says, hey, there's a gentleman out here who wants to talk to you. And the guy goes out there, Kyle goes out there, and the guy said, did you live in Japan? Are you, where did you train? And Kyle's like, just kind of figured it out,
Wow.
started learning and, figured it out. He's like, this is the best ramen I've ever had. And that same night, a white couple said it was the worst ramen they'd ever had and not authentic or anything like that.
Well, thank God for the people that do
Yeah.
say the things that they feel that
Right.
are good,
Yeah.
Because Kyle and me would have gone mad years ago,
Yeah.
Because there really are at least 10 or 15 people for everyone, and maybe more like 50 or 60 for everyone. Most people leave happy, you know, and they tell you.
Right.
And thank God for that.
Yeah.
Because the I'm better at it. I'm 8 years in. I've got skin of steel, and I make a little game out of it. If you might not have seen that in my responses, but I know that I'm doing good work. I know that people like it.
Yeah.
I know that I'm what's important to me is important to the business, and it's mission driven. And at the end of the day, I'm not making a ton of money, but we are walking the walk and talking the talk, and that's what's always mattered to me. And I make a good living, and people like it.
Yeah.
I haven't had to change course. Thank God, I mean, I've really been able to do what we set out to do and then expand upon it.
Yeah. Yeah, those places of experience, I'll just sing their praises night and day. I just went to Eden last week, and I can't say enough great things about that dinner and that meal.
That's cool.
I mean, just absolutely amazing.
Well, that's an adventurous concept, and I wish him a lot of luck. Rich worked for me for a short time.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Rich was out there.
Yeah. I love the idea of cooking over wood. I mean, I love to cook over wood.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have the guts that Rich has to tackle it. But I can't wait to eat there.
The practicality of it. I mean, I went there, it was a late night. I think I got in there at like 8, and I sat at the bar, and I sat at like the seat closest to their kitchen.
So I see some pictures. You can see it, right?
Yes.
Like if you're at the bar, you're almost at the kitchen, aren't you?
Yeah.
Cool.
Especially the seat. I made sure I was in that last seat that was closest to the kitchen. And there weren't a lot of people there, but like I said, it was pretty late for a dinner crowd. And I mean, I was sitting from where I am maybe 3 or 4 feet away. I mean, if I stretched, I could have, had a conversation and, shake his hand. And the heat I never in a million years would have thought the practicality of having open flame in a restaurant and the heat that would generate in there. But I mean, you could feel like you're sitting at a campfire.
Right.
Just absolutely insane. And I've got to tell you, man, I love going into places where someone knows what they're doing in the kitchen and knows me.
Yeah.
Because I ordered like his ember roasted hanger steak. And he gets the ticket, and he goes, "That's all you're getting?" He goes, "You're just getting a steak?" And I was like, "I will have whatever you think I should have. How's that?" And he wound up sending out this, his chicken sausage dish, and along with the steak, and I had dessert, but I mean everything was just unreal. And I don't know what he did to these potatoes, but it was the best damn potato I've ever had in my entire life.
No kidding, that's cool.
And it was just smashed potatoes, how it's but just absolutely unreal.
Well, cooking over an open flame is by far the most elemental way to affect the quality of what you're cooking.
Yeah.
I don't do much over an open flame in my restaurant, well, over a gas flame, but we do some stuff, some smoking and stuff, but that, like cooking over a fire at my house, or if we're going camping, I mean, that is the most primal way to be producing your food, and I love that. I'm on some levels I'm very envious of what he's tackling. On other levels, I'm just happy to do what I do. It's hard enough.
Yeah,
and that seems really, really challenging. I wish him a lot of luck.
So, I'm always curious about like a restaurant like yourself at the Tailor and the Cook for scalability. I mean, I guess one question I have is, what's your ultimate goal with the restaurant? Is it to maintain what you have, or is there like a hope to grow it to a 200-300 seat?
Absolutely not. I think you said it, maintain.
Yeah.
My ultimate goal is, I've already achieved it on some levels. I just said it, I've been able to operate the same restaurant for 8 years. It has changed a little bit, but I haven't had to change it too much, and every change has been for the positive.
That's unreal. 8 years.
Yeah, I feel like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. Mm-hmm. I've not achieved success, but I'm happy with where we're at. And
could I ask how do you view as success for what you're doing there?
Well, I make a good living. Mm-hmm. I put food on the table. I'm finally starting to find some balance for me personally.
That's huge. That's massive in that
I
industry.
can step away from the restaurant, which for the first 6 years I could not. Mm-hmm. Opening Utica Bread helped me to be able to step away from the restaurant, but I was stepping away from the restaurant to run another business. Mm-hmm. And now I can walk away. I've got the greatest staff in the city of Utica, and I'll tell you, the state of New York. And I'll put them up against anybody. And they got heart and soul. They're there for the right reasons. And I can trust them if I need to step away.
That's awesome.
That said, you can't take your hands off the wheel, because especially when a restaurant like ours, people kind of gun for us, like when you're number one on TripAdvisor, and you land the big awards that we've been so fortunate to land from Derona and from Open Table Top 100, and well, that sets the bar. Mm-hmm. And then everybody, or that place is the fence, right? And then people swing for the fence. Mm-hmm. And why shouldn't they?
Right.
Why shouldn't they swing for me? Because we've worked hard, and so they're going to come after us. And I'm totally okay with that, but I can't take my hands off the wheel or my foot off the gas, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So I step away. Yeah. But I'm very much, it's my life's work. And so I think to some extent I've achieved some success when we can pay off all the bills, the debt. I'm not debt free. You put money back in, you remortgage, you got to do this. It's amazing how much money has to be put back in, whether it's the floor or the plumbing or the chairs or the air conditioning. I think success for me is to continue doing what I'm doing. I've got a couple really cool changes to the way we are operating the kitchen coming up in the next quarter. Nothing like monumental, but I'm changing the way that I view local sourcing and local cooking based on the way the market has changed in the damn near decade that I've been doing it. So we're going to make some tweaks to our food service program for the better, based on availability of sustainable products that I've been hungering for. Mm-hmm. The cheeses are better. The produce is better. The season is longer. There are more unconventional farmers doing it 365 days a year, whether it's hydroponic or aquaponic or indoor. The diversity is better. The quality is infinitely better.
Yeah.
The growers take it more seriously because there's more demand for the product that they produce. And so to continue to do what I've always done would be a great injustice to the whole food shed as a whole.
Yeah.
You know, our local food economy has gotten so much better. I want to change with that, you know, and I want to be adaptive to that. But on most levels, I've succeeded. At least success will be something that I see in the rear view, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm happy.
Yeah.
I found balance. I make a good living. The restaurant's busy. I've got a great staff. 99% of the customers are thrilled with what we do. I love the city of Utica. I love being there. What more could I ask?
Yeah.
You know?
That's huge.
It really is.
I think finding happiness in this industry is probably one of the most challenging things. And along with that, the balance.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's a lot of unhappy people in the hospitality industry, which is a really, you know, I'm in the business of providing happiness, right? Via food, beverage, and good service. And that's what a restaurant does.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of unhappy people in my business.
Yeah.
And you just said it, you know, and I mean, there's drugs and alcohol,
Yeah.
gambling and philandering and all the fun stuff is right there, you know? And so to be happy is to be a good dad and a good husband and run a good restaurant is so hard. And I feel like some days I suck at it, you know, and you know what suffers? It's not always the restaurant. It's my family side of things. But for the most part, my wife and I have got it pretty well figured out. Yeah. And I'm really proud of that.
There's I feel like maybe it's just as I've spent more time in the industry, but I feel like culturally it's happened as well. And that's the transparency of the restaurant industry and hospitality industry. And obviously you have things like, you know, the Food Network, and you have your celebrity chefs and, you know, Anthony Bourdain's, you know, revealing book, you know, over a decade ago, things like that opened up the world to what happens in the industry. But as you get more connected, you know, you have more chefs now and owners running their Instagram and social media accounts and doing their own branding. There was a time, maybe just about a year ago, where I was out doing a video featuring a local restaurant and chef, and the chef said in the video, well, obviously we're the best. I think I had asked him what had changed now that they had done something. And he said, well, obviously everyone knows that I'm the best around and I make the best food and we have the best restaurant. And but now we're going to be the best in cocktails because I'm in charge of the cocktail menu. And I just thought to myself, what an arrogant thing to say. And then as I got home and I was editing that video, I thought to myself, well, that's kind of par for the course, I feel like, in a lot of these, you know, kind of chef-driven restaurants and, you know, and anywhere really. You know, that's just kind of how it goes. And, you know, then there was like another encounter, like no one, like this person wasn't responding to anything, like any emails or trying. And I was like, well, I guess that's kind of par for the course in this industry, you know. I grew up, and I wouldn't say sheltered whatsoever, but definitely not in, you know, a very, it didn't grow up with like a lot of shocking things happening. And so nowadays, even if I like hear of, oh, this person does this, it's like, what? Excuse, like that's happening? That's real?
In a restaurant?
But it is the restaurant industry. These things happen.
It's a crazy way of life, you know. Yeah. But those things, you know, arrogance and unprofessionalness, those shouldn't be the norms, you know.
Right.
Like I said, I think I said before we started talking or taping here that like you open a business to be the best. Why else would you?
Right.
But if you are the best, or if you perceive yourself the best, then the best thing you could do is to be humble and recognize that, I mean, every time I go out to eat, no matter what, I'm looking for not necessarily to rip off ideas, but just to here's a perfect example. One of the things that I pride myself, it's such a tiny little thing. If we put a dish of ice cream on a plate, the doily, if you will, underneath is recycled menu. I did not come up with that idea. I picked it up from a restaurant in Nantucket. But I was like, oh my God, we print our menus every day. We have so much paper.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I was like, why we could use this, And so you put it face up, right? So that people can see that it's a piece of the menu, piece of the wine menu, piece of the beverage menu, piece of the dinner menu. And it generates so much conversation. Really? I didn't come up with that. And if I'm going to be printing all this paper, I should try to get a second life out of it, right? And so when I go to other restaurants, I'm just looking for what they do well, and or what they're not doing well to remind me that I am doing it well, right?
That's huge.
This bathroom is disgusting. This is why my bathroom is not disgusting, right? Or the music in here is, one of the biggest pet peeves in a restaurant is if there is no music or it's not loud enough. I can actually deal with it being too loud. I'm young. I like music. I actually enjoy loud music. So I don't mind that. But if there's not enough filling a space when I'm trying to dine or like enjoy myself, I get wicked uncomfortable. And I think to myself, how could they not notice how freaking weird it is in here? Like I can hear this guy's conversation and I'm afraid to let loose or just be comfortable because they didn't. And that's why I'm like, I'm glad my music is right. I'm glad that the volume is right. I'm glad that the temperature is right. I'm glad that the if the seat cushion's warmed out, that I recognize that and I got it fixed. I'm glad that the door handle that fell off the men's room door the other night got fixed immediately, so it didn't keep happening. This stuff happens, and I just want to make sure that every little part of it is thought of. And so if I purport to be the best, well, I better like really mean that. Yeah. And then just not talk about it, but just show it, So it's always got to learn. Yeah. You're always learning. Right. I learn from the people that work for me. I'm learning from the people that would be considered my competition, I guess, Always learning, always expanding, always trying to be better,
Yeah. Well, Tim, thank you so much for coming out here and being
This was great.
Podcast. Yeah, man, for sure.
I don't need too many excuses to make a trip to Syracuse. I love it here. So
there you go.
I'm headed over to see my friend David at Syracuse Salt after this.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That salt that they have is...
I'm using the salt. I just haven't seen the facility. So I told him I was going to be here talking to you, and he said, well, come on by. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I've had really great salt before. My friends went out to Oregon and brought me back like this kind of big sampler pack from, I think it's called Jacob's Salt Company.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
And great, absolutely phenomenal. And I never really thought about salt until I had this stuff. Holy cow. My
salt
God.
has a flavor, and it's not just salt.
Right.
There's other things to it.
Rich put it on top of the steak I had the other night, and my God. Oh, yeah. I mean, when I was at the fair at the Wegmans kitchen, Mark had a bag of it, and I just like took some on my finger, and I was like, this is amazing.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I bought it. David was coming through Utica for something and dropped me off a couple bags just in time for tomatoes.
Oh,
and
nice.
I feel like it's also been a really good tomato year.
Yeah.
And I've got great farmers that are producing just the best tomatoes. And then I brought the Syracuse Flake into it, and I just feel like it's been the best tomato year ever. So I'm going over to see how it all comes together.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, tell him I said hi.
I sure will.
All right.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.